Well, as kids head back to school, some will face a problem most parents never experienced: cyberbullying. Joining us now from Cincinnati with some tips on spotting cyberbullying and ways to prevent it is Brian Taylor with Vector Solutions Education. Brian, thanks for joining us. An important topic. Just generally speaking, how widespread is this issue, this problem?
Well, truthfully, Nathan is very widespread, and there's some data that suggests it's getting a little worse, not better. So with the advent of social media in all circles, it's something that, school professionals and parents need to be especially vigilant.
So what are the signs to look for to figure out if your child's being bullied?
There are combinations of behavioral signs and then also physiological signs. So even loss of weight, visible signs of depression could be a signal. Detachment, if your child becomes less communicative, and listen, that's tough, right? My wife and I raised 4 kids, and so, they're not always wanting to talk with mom and dad, but I think a combination of factors, but probably most importantly, differences in behavior and a withdrawing of sorts might be key indicators.
So what should parents do if they see those signs?
Well, certainly talk with your kid and engage him or her, and it might even be helpful to introduce, listen, are you being bullied or ostracized? I mean, online, are bad things happening to you? Sometimes asking those questions, because it's really interesting. Kids aren't a whole lot different than us as we were raised, and the last thing we want to do is rat or tell an adult or that sort of thing. But I think that's so important to be able to make that bond, to strike that communication so that you can get some insight. Statistically, and it's proven in research, that the most effective way to counteract bullying is to engage a caring adult.
All right, great, good to know. And what about, let's say, a student not being bullied? What can they do, and how can they look out for their peers who might be in that situation?
That's a really wonderful question. I think something that we can do as parents and educators is just help make kids aware of the consequences of bullying. And by the way, what really constitutes bullying? So bullying is harm, unfair match, and repetition. So any one of those things are not so good, but the combination of all three, especially repetition when that's repeated, so making kids aware is very key. The other thing is helping kids understand the importance of letting an adult know as well. So bystander intervention is a really, really important way to combat bullying.
If a parent were to say to their kid, let's just stay off social media for now because you're being bullied, is that effective at all? Is that even realistic?
It's, I don't know that I can empirically say that would not be effective. But I do know that in this day and age, it's pretty difficult. It's a bit unrealistic. We're so connected. So I think what probably works better is to help kids develop a healthy network, and to also really understand that it's okay to verbalize when you're having difficulties. One thing I would add, Nathan, is that in the instances of cyberbullying, which I think 1 in 3 Canadian students report being cyberbullied. What's interesting is 85% of the Canadian population is aware of it, but the repetition part of bullying can just happen so quickly in social media circles. It can go from a one-to-one to a one-to-many in an incredibly short amount of time, and so making all kids aware of that is key.
All right, Brian Taylor in Cincinnati with Vector Solutions Education. Some great bits, tips, lots of advice. That was fantastic. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too.